Yeah, that's what I saw over here. Hang on a second. Let me get over here and restart that.
Will
Something.
all of these be recorded, like for later?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
they're
Awesome.
recorded. Let me get over here. I think Boxcast logged itself out for some reason. Let me bring it back in. Yeah, that's what happened. Bring this back. Okay. 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 You should be seeing it here pretty soon. Okay. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. You're up.
It is the 19th day of June when we're coming to you today, and glad to have you along. We have an exciting program for you today. Roxy Van Ruiten is going to be with us in just a couple of minutes to talk about an experience that most of us don't want to have, I don't think, but she had it nonetheless, and that was going through Hurricane Otis, the rapidly intensifying storm off the coast of Mexico last year. And I think we've got a fascinating tale to hear coming up in just a few minutes. Before we get to that, we want to thank our sponsors who week in and week out make this program a possibility. We want to start, of course, with none other than USAA. Boy, USAA, thank you so much for what you do to make this program a possibility week in and week out, and also for your role in the National Tropical Weather Conference held every year on South Padre Island. We're so glad to have you as part of what we do. Speaking of South Padre Island, the SBI Convention and Visitors Bureau is a big part of this as well. They're our hosts for the conference every year on South Padre Island, and thanks for your support. We appreciate that as well. Also, thanks to Weather Boy, Weather Call, the Weather Company, all these people who are part of the National Tropical Weather Conference and NTWC Plus. We're going to get to the tropical update in just a moment. I want to start, though, by saying good morning to Dr. Hal Needham. Dr. Hal is on the road this morning to show us what's going on in his part of the world. Good morning, Dr. Hal.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to NTWC Plus. I'm here in some of the highest impact coastal flooding anywhere that you're going to find in Texas. I'm actually in Jamaica Beach, Texas, on Galveston Island. I know you're seeing some raindrops on the window. I have to pull out just to show you what I'm seeing. Hang on one second, just bear with me. But about 3 feet of storm surge, and this has just persisted throughout this storm. We can see a lot of flooding up on houses and flooding under houses. Again, we have this really broad wind field underneath the out in the Gulf of Mexico, and that's just been pushing this storm surge, which has been coming up about 3 feet above normal and about 4 feet on the tide gauge. This again is Jamaica Beach and Galveston Island. Low-lying parts of Galveston are inundated, but a lot of the island is actually still dry. It just depends where you're at. We're expecting this storm surge to stay with us throughout most of the day today.
That's amazing when you, given that we're talking about something that wasn't until about 2 minutes ago, even a tropical depression or tropical cyclone. It is now as of this moment, but still you're a long way away from that. And the impacts are being felt all the way where you are, Hal. That's pretty amazing.
Tim, that's exactly it. This massive wind field is just pushing all this storm surge. We've had a couple days of really strong onshore winds. And so it's just pushing a lot of this into these low-lying communities. And like you said, it's just such a huge wind field. The center of circulation is very far from us here, but we're still getting the effects of the storm surge here yesterday, today, and maybe even into tonight.
Pretty amazing. All right, we're going to see more of that in just a second. I appreciate that. Bill Reed's not with us today. I think he's out chasing wildfires in New Mexico. So in Bill's absence, I'm going to give you your tropical update for today. So and it always takes me a minute longer to figure out how to share the screen, but here we go. I'm going to show you what we're seeing. And of course, just within minutes of going on the air, potential tropical cyclone number 1 became Tropical Storm Alberto, the first named storm of the season. And you kind of see where the center of it is down there. Let's look at the position. And it's quite a ways south of the Texas-Mexico border and moving west. But if you look where that X is and look where the impact is, everything's on the north side of it. And the impact goes well beyond where even that is. As you're seeing where Hal is, I mean, Hal's way up there on top, off the top of that screen even. Galveston Island doesn't even make this image, but yet you're seeing the kind of tide that you're seeing up there. So that is pretty significant. We can look at the tide gauges up there. Let's go to that one where Hal is. And this is the tide gauge at Galveston Pier 21. And you can see that it's running 4.5 feet. That's about 3 feet above the normal level where it was expected to be. So super high tides all the way up to Galveston as a result of that. A little bit closer, this one is right at the mouth of the Rio Grande. This is Bravo Santiago Pass, the jetties at South Padre, basically. That one's running about 2.5 feet above normal tide levels. So you can see we're making it well away from the center of this thing. We're seeing pretty significant tides. Here's the rainfall projection for this. And as you take a look at that, you notice that this is a 7-day rainfall. We go to just to today's rainfall, and you're in the 5 to 7 inch range from northern Mexico all the way up to north of Corpus Christi. There's a huge amounts of rain expected, and you go farther north from that, you see even more. So this is what it looks like on satellite, which is really crazy because you see that big area of convection on the east side of it, but all the wind is on the north side of it. That's why this thing took so long to get named, if you will, because it's so disorganized. But we're starting to see signs of organization now. There's the latest recon. You kind of see the white down the bottom down there, that area of almost calm winds, and then you see pretty much a complete circulation now all the way around. So you see the center of it kind of down there in the middle of that. I'm going to do one other thing here. I'm going to share, but allows me to. I'm going to stop for a second. I'm going to share a different screen. Okay, so bear with me. I want to show you this one. So this is a camera that is at Port Isabel, headed across towards South Padre Island. And I don't know if you see that or not. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's a camera from Port Isabel looking at South Padre Island. That's what it looks like right now. About 30 minutes ago, you couldn't see the bridge at all. The rain was coming down so hard. So it's just getting started. So that's, going back to what's going on in the rest of the tropics. That's mostly it. There is another system right where this system is that has potential to develop next week. Hurricane Center is watching that right where Alberto is. So we got to watch and see if that one is going to develop in exactly the same spot. It's just a matter of timing to see. And then another system off the East Coast we're watching as well. That's enough for the tropical update. I want to get to our program. So let me go back to Hal now. We've shown some great pictures, and Hal's going to introduce our guest, and then we'll take it from there. Hal, stay dry and take it away.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if I've ever done an intro from inside a storm surge. This is pretty exciting. We're always doing new stuff on NTWC Plus. Y'all are going to be so excited to see our guest this morning. Roxanne Van Ruiten is a bilingual journalist with 3 years of experience as the morning weather anchor at KTSM 9 News. As a survivor of Category 5 Hurricane Otis, she brings firsthand knowledge of severe weather impacts, which fuels her passion for meteorology. Currently, she's furthering her education at Mississippi State University, committed to enhancing her skills and better serving the public by combining her real-world experience with academic expertise. Roxy, welcome to NTWC Plus. So excited to have you here this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be speaking with you guys. Thank you, Alex, Hal, Tim, for having me. And I'm excited to talk amongst the pros, right?
Well, Roxy, what you saw there in Cat 5 Hurricane Otis, very few people have seen that. I mean, could you walk us through a little bit? Did you have this passion for meteorology, and you just happened to get in one of the most intense hurricanes ever to make landfall in the Western Hemisphere? Did you know going in that there was the potential that this thing could really ramp up like it did?
Oh, man. Well, I was there with people who were born and raised in Acapulco. So when we got there, we knew about the tropical storm, but everyone was like, oh, we get them all the time. It's not a big deal. If anything, it's just going to be heavy rain for one day. That's what all the locals were telling me. So it was the last thing I was expecting. But yeah, it was an experience. But I'm happy it happened to me rather than somebody else who didn't want to be in that situation, because I learned a lot from it.
Roxy, at what point when this thing started ramping up did you realize this is not as forecast and not what you expected?
Man, it really started to intensify at 11 p.m. So our friend who is from Acapulco, he just told us to go to sleep, just ignore it. It was intensifying. And so at some point, the bedroom window exploded. So that's the point where we freaked out. We had to hide in the closet, and we were actually in the closet for 3 hours. So right before we hit the eye wall, I started to feel the floor shake or the building shake. So I think that was the moment where I got it. I mean, I really thought that was it for us. We actually started hugging each other at that point. I remember I was texting my mom, I love you, and it wasn't going through. So for me, that was the moment. And I also got a cut on my leg. I still actually have the scar from it, from when the window exploded. But I mean, I don't have great footage. This is what I saw for 3 hours. We were just staring at our feet in the closet. The winds were just so loud, but we got through it. So it's all good.
Yeah. One more. Well, actually, let's just talk a little bit of housekeeping here. I know, Roxy, you have some video, and I know, Tim, you and I are going to interact with Roxy right now. Can we do a little housekeeping just on how the flow will be here in the next minutes?
Yeah, definitely. Go for it.
Oh, Tim, I think you're muted.
Yeah, we're just gonna let it ride through, Hal. As you want to move video, I'll bring it up, and Roxy can talk a little bit about it, and we can just move on.
Yeah, one last question before we get to Roxy's video. Roxy, what was the context? Where were you located? Were you in a high rise? Were you more down on a single family residential? I mean, in what setting were you when the storm hit?
We were in the top floor of a building. We were staying at an Airbnb, but it was right by the beach as well. So it's where the most of the damage was done.
Roxy, were you over by Princess Beach, kind of to the southeast there, like where that core of those Cat 5 winds come in? Like what, as far as the setting and the layout compared to Acapulco proper, where exactly were you?
I can't tell you exactly where, but we were right by the beach, about 5 minutes from the beach, but it was at the top floor in a building.
Yeah, and you were in that area, I think, that really took on the core of that Cat 5 eye wall. So just tremendous. I did some field work there in March, and just a lot of those high rises were just completely gutted from the wind. We rarely see wind damage that strong. And if you were in a top floor, well, this is great. We're seeing the video here right now.
Mm-hmm. So that was the original bedroom we were staying at. There was 2 bedrooms. One of the walls was pure glass though. So the glass completely shattered there. As you can see, the wall there as well was destroyed. The ceiling outside of the porch. So the kitchen was actually an open patio. So, I mean, everything in the kitchen got destroyed. And she's actually the owner. So this is the first time she saw, her building destroyed, and it was a very emotional for her. And unfortunately, a lot of people in Acapulco, almost nobody has insurance out there, so it's a very tough situation for them.
Yeah, for sure. It seems like the wind impacts were tremendous, and like you said, even the locals were really surprised. They had not ever seen impact like this before.
No, yeah, I'm telling you, everybody kept telling me it's going to be mild. We have tropical storms all the time. We grew up with them. Never did anybody think it would reach a category 5. And it also happened overnight. I mean, we had dinner at 8 p.m. So we went to the beach after dinner as well, around 9 p.m. So everything was really beautiful by the time everyone went to sleep. Nobody was expecting, their town to be destroyed by the morning.
Roxy, how long did really the core of that eye wall hit, where the most intense winds? I mean, how long did that last?
I would say it was around 2 a.m. It was a good 30 minutes where, it was just destruction. You could hear everything from the kitchen being destroyed. But once we were in the eye, it was silence. And then all the lights were out. So it was pitch darkness. It was silence. The winds did pick up again after the eye, but it wasn't as intense as it was in the first round.
Right. How long did the eye passage take there, Roxy?
I would say 20 minutes, 20 to 30. For me, it was very fast, but I'm sure it was around 20 minutes.
And what did it feel like? Obviously, when you have an eye go right over you, you have the passage of the eye wall on the front side and the back side. Did they feel similar to you? Did they feel different?
Well, the first round was definitely a lot stronger. I didn't even want to move from the spot when the wind stopped because I was so scared about the second round. We actually tried to go downstairs, but one of the doors was completely covering the stairway, so we couldn't go downstairs. And once I started to hear the winds going back up, I went back to the closet. But again, it wasn't as intense as the first round.
Roxy, it was really cool reading your biography, how you really have a passion for not only predicting weather and communicating meteorology, but also doing what you can to help protect people and help mitigate losses. So how did your experience going through Otis really change your perspective, or maybe help fuel your passion, or even redirect it as you move forward?
I just think it's such a big responsibility, and just learning it from firsthand, experiencing it. I mean, it just breaks my heart. You know, a lot of these people went to sleep thinking everything would be fine in the morning. Every model 24 hours out wasn't even predicting more than 60 miles per hour. So the fact that we were, you know, every model was off by over 100 miles per hour is just insane to me. And you know, if we could have just told people even an hour before how intense it was going to be, it would have helped a lot of people. So I just think it's a big responsibility, and I love this career, and I want to keep growing in this career, and I want to help as many people as I can.
Yeah, Roxy, that's a really interesting point, just as far as, you know, the models year by year seem to improve in general, but this was one storm that was much more intense than forecast. And like you said, I think it caught a lot of people off guard. Did you sense that there's also this climatology factor when you look at Pacific landfalling hurricanes in Mexico? Traditionally, a lot of them around Acapulco were big rainmakers with a lot of flooding, but you didn't have any major hurricane strikes in their history. Do you think that played into it as well, as far as people not being familiar with getting a strike from a major hurricane there?
Yeah, I would actually go as far as saying out of all the category fives, I think this one was probably the one that most people found themselves in an eye wall. I would honestly say that because nobody saw this coming, and nobody got to leave Acapulco to prepare for it. So I don't know what you guys think. Do you guys think there was another category five that maybe more people got caught in?
I don't, Alec or Hal, I don't think so. I mean, I think this caught people so off guard that, you know, usually we have some clue. I mean, wouldn't you say, Hal, we have some clue that something like this can happen?
And unfortunately, you know, from spending time in Acapulco earlier this year, it's just a very well-developed area where you have a lot of people also in harm's way. Some of those Pacific Mexico hurricanes made landfall in more rural areas where you just did not have as high of a population. So Roxy, I think you're right. I think the impacts of that Cat 5 eye wall, I don't know if we've had one like that impact so many people.
Yeah. And I also want to get your perspective. I mean, you guys are the pros. You guys have been, you know, looking at weather data for years. You know, we're so advanced with technology now, and especially with AI. I mean, we're using AI now to forecast weather. What do you think went wrong? Do you think it's, I mean, climate change? I mean, the fact that there was no model 24 hours out that was nearly close to forecasting this correctly. I don't know, maybe the science behind it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Now you go first on that.
I mean, my take from looking at it is that we just did not have as much high quality data to really infuse into the models. From what I understand, the satellite views were oblique angles. That means instead of looking straight down on the storm, a lot of the satellite views were coming in from angles. And as far as I know, we didn't really have hurricane hunters fly into the storm until it was already rapidly intensifying. So I think my take on it is that the data we were ingesting into the model probably were not as accurate as if there would have been something, say, in the northern Gulf Coast, where we maybe would have had better satellite fixes and flown into it more times. For me, it's a lesson that if you don't have good data going into your models, you can really get caught off guard.
You compare that to what we saw with PTC-1 now, Alberto, where we've had planes in it constantly for the last 2 or 3 days. There's been all the great satellite imagery and everything else. You compare that to what we were looking at with Otis, and I think there's a pretty stark contrast, a pretty significant difference. I think you're right. So you know, data in, data out, or lack of data in. But yeah, it's hard to say overall because it was such a rare bird, if you will. You know, such an unusual thing to see it go that fast, and now everybody thinks that oh my gosh, water is warm, that can happen anytime. But I don't think that's the case. I think generally speaking, we have a better handle than that, and rapid intensification is now a thing. So what were you talk about the people there in Acapulco, when it was over, what was the conversation? You know, when you got to the next morning, you're going, oh my gosh, what happened?
Oh man, well, after we left the Airbnb, we actually stayed at my friend's sister's apartment. So she didn't have much damage besides her windows being destroyed. So that's where we stayed for 5 nights. So she really helped us through that. But once we went home to El Paso, she actually told me that her apartment caught on fire. She was charging her computer and, her whole apartment burned down. This is like the after hurricane aftermath that people don't think about. And, it hasn't been covered still. She had an insurance agent come through Christmas and still nobody has fixed her apartment. So, I mean, Acapulco still needs a lot of help. I mean, when I was there as well, people needed anything. I saw people looting the bank and, every store you could think of, and they just need a lot of help out there. And it's unfortunate. They really do need more help than that's provided.
Had you been down there before, or was this your first visit?
It was my first time.
Wow. Wow. And are you anxious to go back and see how they've come along, or you want to wait a little while?
I've tried to go back. She actually came to visit us in El Paso, our friend that lives out there. She said it makes her very sad. She tries not to go back. She's actually living with her ex-husband right now in Juarez. So she just says it's not a good time right now. The roads are still not even completely cleared out with debris and trees. So it's not safe yet.
Go back. I'm still thinking about what you said about the night before having dinner and taking a walk on the beach. That really stands out in my mind as something that is just remarkable. The night before, even the night before a tropical storm. We saw people doing that on South Padre, last night, going for a walk on the beach because the water was high, but it was still, it's kind of cool to be out here and check this out. Was that kind of the thing? We just want to see what it looks like out here the night before this little storm was going to come in. Was that kind of the general feeling?
Yeah, and it was beautiful. There was a nice sunset. We walked on the beach and, oh man, nobody could have ever guessed what was coming. But yeah, it's been a very intense. I remember we were also waiting when obviously you guys know that you're supposed to go to a local church when a natural disaster happens. I remember we waited there all day on a Wednesday waiting for water. We were super thirsty and it never came. And I asked the ones who were in charge there, I was like, what happened? What happened to the water truck? And she told me, it was stolen. Like everybody was just out here trying to take what they could. Everyone was like in survival mode instinct. As you can see it right there, actually, everybody was asking for water right there and looting the Oxxos. There was nothing left in the Oxxos, nothing at all. So the first day was pretty dangerous. We actually stayed indoors the first day because you just didn't know what to expect. But yeah, I just feel for everyone out there and I hope they're doing a lot better.
So given that, people travel all the time. They go to areas that are hurricane prone and there may be nothing when they make that trip in, but by the time they get there, all heck breaks loose. What advice do you have for people who are traveling to an area like that, whether it be Acapulco or Cancun or wherever it may be? If
they're found in that situation?
If they're going somewhere and all of a sudden something pops up, you get out before it gets bad, or if you're stuck, what kind of advice do you have for them?
I just stay in a safe area. That I was recording, right? So I actually had an instance where when I was in an OXXO recording, somebody almost stole my camera. They got upset with me, like, don't record me. They thought I was like, I don't know, a police or something. They were just like, don't record me. And they almost took my items. And that was kind of scary. I've never been in that situation before. So just be in a safe location. You don't know what to expect when people are desperate. They need help. So just stay safe. And if you can leave, if you know what's coming, yes, definitely leave the area if you can.
That's fascinating. Just that you end up with everybody else. You're in the same boat they are, and everybody's. When you were in the store trying to get these things, was there a way to pay for it, or was it just you're on your own? Just take it. Anyway, what was that like?
So the governor of Guerrero did help us. They provided bus to get us to Chilpancingo. So Chilpancingo is actually more dangerous. It's a pretty unsafe area, and they left us there at 2 a.m. So it's about a 2-3 hour bus ride, but they left us there at 2 in the morning. And to get another bus, we had to have cash. So a lot of people didn't have cash, but thankfully we did. So we actually bought a bus to go to Mexico City. But I definitely carry cash with you. You know, if you're ever close to something like that, you got to have cash on you.
Wow. I'll jump back in. This is just fascinating. I can't imagine going through what you went through when you planned on a nice leisurely vacation and ended up in the middle of this. How?
Well, Roxy, that advice to keep cash, we've seen that even on the Gulf Coast where people get hit by a hurricane, power's out. A few days later, the stores start to open, but they say our credit card readers are still down. And you get people saying, oh, no, I only have $7 to my name. I think that's really good advice for any hurricane zone, just to always have a cash supply with you.
Mm-hmm. And a portable charger as well. I didn't bring that, unfortunately.
Roxy, what was it like the morning after? I mean, you wake up a few hours before pre-dawn. You weren't sure if you were going to survive this thing. What's it like as dawn's breaking the morning after Otis? I mean, you and your friends there in that Airbnb unit, and then obviously you're assessing the structure and then getting out of the building and starting to see neighboring buildings and what's going on in that neighborhood. I mean, what were those first moments like to step out on the streets and see the damage and to talk to people and engage with people?
Oh man, well, what really stays in my mind is when it was around 3 to 4 in the morning, that's when everything finally stopped. It was complete silence, complete darkness. I mean, you couldn't see anything. You could hear yells here and there, but we basically just had to wait till sunrise. And we were just so exhausted. There was debris everywhere. The mattress was soaking wet and we were exhausted. You know, there was really nowhere to like lay down or rest. We just, as you can see, that was our area we were in. There's just nowhere to rest. So we were just waiting for sunrise. Once we saw the sun come up, we tried to go downstairs. We had to move the door that was in the way of the stairway. And you saw people cleaning up right away. The neighbors started picking up right away. It's actually kind of bizarre. I feel like everyone was very calm. They were just kind of like, what can we do? We got to start cleaning. We got to start working. I did see the owner when she stopped by. She asked me, she was like, how is it upstairs? And I told her, I'm like, it's bad. Like, there's nothing much left upstairs. And she started crying and bawling. And she's like, you know, I don't have anything else. I don't have any insurance. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. But I think she got over it right away and she started cleaning up as well.
Wow.
Yeah, it seemed like people were really coming together too as communities, helping their neighbors, helping their friends and family clean up. Obviously, it's just overwhelming to have that much debris. But I was there several months later, and it did seem like they had made a lot of progress by then.
Yeah, they definitely went to work. I mean, there are hard workers over there in Acapulco.
That's what you guys talk about. It. That was impressed me about even anywhere in Mexico. And we were in Cabo not long after a hurricane hit. And all the employees who had been, you know, wait staff and housekeepers all came to work to put the place back together. And they were all employed. You know, the big hotels, the big, you know, the big resorts kept those people employed, just kind of steered them a different direction so that you're no longer a waiter. You're now, you know, taking sand out of the pool, whatever the case may be. But they all had jobs. They all came together to put the resort back together because that's their lifeblood. And I'm sure that's what you saw and how that's probably what you saw when you were there too.
Mm-hmm. I did have a couple of people reach out to me through email asking like to buy the property of our friend, which I thought was very bizarre. I mean, I guess they just saw it as like an opportunity that like, oh, I can get cheap property right now. But I was like, no, nobody's out here trying to sell their property. They want to fix Acapulco. You know, they're not willing to just give away their home. No, they want to work on it and they want everything to be back how it used to be.
Wow. Get it back to normal as quickly as they can. Now, let's take a quick break, talk about our sponsors who make this program a possibility each and every week. This is NTWC Plus. Those watching here on the internet, we are part of the National Tropical Weather Conference, which is held every year during the month of April on South Padre Island. And we couldn't do it without a number of sponsors, including USAA. My goodness, USAA has been with us from the very beginning, and we appreciate their support. When you have insurance questions, the insurance queries, they have the answers for you, and you can get those from USAA. And we appreciate everything they do and their coverage. The South Padre Island Convention and Visitors Bureau, of course, the conference is held on South Padre Island every year. They've been supporters from the very beginning, and make sure everybody, when you get there, you get your cool little notebook that says South Padre Island on it and all that cool stuff, but also just a big part of the program, and we appreciate that. Weather Boy, you know, if you come to the conference, you'll get your very own custom Weather Boy cookie. I'm just saying, and a lot of other cool stuff too. Weather Boy is a big sponsor, and we appreciate all that everybody there at Weather Boy does. Weather Call, an important service in many communities across the country and spreading as we speak. Weather Call is a part of what we do, and of course the Weather Company as well as Black Magic Design, all folks that make NTWC Plus and the National Tropical Weather Conference an important part of the tropical weather season. It is the tropical weather season. We're talking today with Roxanne Van Ruiten. We're talking about Hurricane Otis, which hit Acapulco in a way that I don't think anybody expected. Came in a big way and is going to be felt there for a long, long time. Roxy, recovery time down there. I mean, based on what you saw and how you can jump into, because you went there a little bit after the fact, how long is it going to take to get Acapulco back to what we knew as this amazing, beautiful resort? What'd you see, Roxy?
I mean, it's going to take years. I don't think it will ever be the same. But I mean, like I said, people of Acapulco are very hardworking. They started working right away. And even in just like a month progress, they were already, you know, going back to work, which is crazy to me. My friend told me she's a teacher where we were staying at, and she said she was going back to work. And I was like, wow, like, they couldn't give you guys a break, and they're like, no, I love working. And so they're doing a lot better, but it is going to take years.
Now, based on what you saw, what's your experience there as well? After you were there a little while after the fact.
I was there about 4 months after. I was just amazed that people are really resilient. They're very hardworking and industrious. And like I shared at the National Tropical Weather Conference in South Padre, what I thought people really had a smart approach. This was just an overwhelming disaster that, like Roxy said, is going to take years for recovery. And what I saw was really people doing a strategic approach to get that one grocery store in their neighborhood open, or one hotel in a given area open so tourists can start coming back, or a hotel resort saying, hey, we have 3 swimming pools that are knocked out of commission. We're going to get one of them operational to bring tourists back. I felt like they're doing a very strategic approach, but just the scale and the size of this disaster is hard to really describe. And like Roxy said, I think it'll take years, but they have this resilient spirit to get there.
It seems like the government of Mexico has done this a few times before, whether it's in Acapulco or Puerto Vallarta or Cabo or Cancun. They have a pretty good idea what they're doing.
Yeah, I think if it was Cancun, I mean, people would start working on it right away, right? They would get a lot of support from the government. But I feel like Acapulco gets a little left behind a little bit from the government. But, you know, they've been doing the best that they can, and they've been doing a great job.
Alex, I talked to a shop owner there who is very pleased with the government response. He said in his district, the government came in and gave people relief right away. Everyone got financial relief. And he said in his 60 years, he's never seen a government response this good from that was just one shop owner, but it did seem like there was a positive view on how the government handled this from some people down there.
Okay, that's good to hear. I'm glad that they did.
And it seems like, you know, in places like the Mexican resorts and places like the Bahamas, they see this, you know, it happens. It's just a fact of life, just like it is in the U.S. But it seems like they have a better handle than what you might expect on how to recover from it. At least that's what it looks like to me, and you know, how you've been to a number of these places. But it just seems like they've got a pretty good handle on it in general.
Yeah, it really seemed like they had a perspective. Like you said, the government as a whole has dealt with a lot of these disasters in different areas. What was unusual about this was to have a major hurricane strike, Cat 3 or above in Acapulco. They hadn't really seen anything like this in that area before. And so, like Roxy said, I think it was a shock to a lot of the people. I also wanted to make one comment and ask a question to Roxy as well. Roxy, I think you had said on the ground, the locals were saying, hey, you have nothing to worry about. We've been through many hurricanes. They're usually not that intense. And I thought that really parallels very closely to the feedback I heard from people that survived Hurricane Ian, a Cat 4 hurricane in Southwest Florida. I talked to a couple from the Midwest, U.S. They were from near Chicago. They almost drowned in the storm surge. And they said it was interesting. In the day before the storm, all of their friends and family from all over the country were saying, you need to get out. but they said it was the locals who said, oh, this is your first time. It'll be fine. We don't flood. We don't get a lot of damage. And she actually felt the perspective she was getting from the locals was more life-threatening than what she was hearing from people farther away. I don't know if you felt similar with your Acapulco experience, but it is interesting to me that areas that have not been hit by a certain type of hurricane, a lot of times locals have this complacency or perspective that it's never going to happen.
Yeah. The amount of times that I heard, oh, this happens all the time, nothing to worry about. I definitely heard it like 6 times. Everyone that was like born and raised in Acapulco, just, it's a common thing. Tropical storms. We'll get heavy rain. We actually did go to the store to buy groceries. They told me like, if anything, there'll be too much rain to go anywhere to eat. So we'll have some groceries here at the Airbnb. I mean, nobody was expecting this. Even at 10 p.m. when the winds were picking up, he was still like, no, go to sleep. Everything will be fine. So it's like once in a century kind of storm. Hopefully, hopefully nothing like that happens again. But yes.
Roxy, could you access any type of real-time weather data or forecast, radar loops, satellites, any local forecasting? Was there any guidance like that you could access? Or were you just learning about the intensity of this as you're literally hitting the wind, you hear the wind hitting your building?
Yeah, I actually have a screenshot where we're actually inside the eye. That was like the last time that I had any kind of internet access. And also my best friend, Katie Frazier, she's a meteorologist in El Paso as well. She was updating me like every 5 minutes. At some point she told me, oh, the track is going to be completely far away from you, nothing to worry about. And then at the next second, she was like, oh my God, you need to pack your stuff. You need to charge your phone. The track is heading directly to the location you sent me. So at that point, I had already packed everything. Thankfully, my stuff wasn't as much damage. My friends did end up, losing all their clothes. I told them, but nobody believed me. I told them, I was like, the hurricane is coming. I'm telling you, it's intensifying. And they didn't pack their things. So I was the only one that really got to save my things.
Roxy, as your friend was giving you meteorology guidance, did she also update you accurately on the intensity? I mean, it seems like it really blew up, incredibly strong, rapid intensification. Was she able to tip you off on the intensity as well as the track?
Yeah, she really helped me when she told me, like, start packing your things. And I also tweeted out a video of the one you just saw, actually, of the balcony. And that went instantly viral on Twitter. And I actually started to get all these replies like, girl, you're in danger. You need to get out now. Like, this is not funny. You need to leave now. So once I started seeing those replies, I started panicking and I started to realize how intense it really was.
Did you lose contact with the rest of the world for a while? Were you out of touch? Was everything down? How long was that?
For 5 days, I wasn't able to contact anybody. So yeah, I was trying to text my mom, my parents. There was no internet access whatsoever. I mean, even if my phone was charged, which it died right away, nobody could contact anybody for 5 days. So until we reached Chimpancingo is finally when I got all the notifications.
What must your family have been thinking? Can you imagine?
Oh, man. I mean, my mom was just so scared, right? But I was able to make a phone call to her in Chimpancingo. And she was like yelling at me on the phone. She's like, I told you not to go. But they were just so happy that I was okay. And she's like, Mika, be careful next time. And they were just really happy that I was okay.
They had to be. I cannot imagine. We worry about, Josh, Josh Morgerman, when he's in a storm, he disappears for a couple of days. Everybody assumes the worst, and then boom, he pops up. And I'm sure your family must have just been, when you showed up 5 days later, what a blessing to know you're okay.
They're like, we know you're smart. We know you'll be fine. So I was like, well, thank you. But I was hoping for more of a, I don't know, I was expecting more.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What else you got? You got anything else?
Yeah, I mean, so this is really interesting, Roxy. You're based out of El Paso, more of an arid climate, even though you're still in the great state of Texas. But now going through this intense hurricane, has that given you more interest or curiosity to cover or to learn more about tropical weather?
Man, I would love to cover more tropical weather. I've been in Texas my whole life. It's always been about the heats and the winds, but I mean, to have the privilege to forecast, hurricanes and tornadoes and more intense weather, I definitely want to head that way in my career and get better every day. I mean, I'm still a meteorology student, but I have so much passion for this, and I can't wait to have the opportunity one day.
Roxy, what was going through a high-end hurricane like that? I know sometimes I talk to people and there are elements of these storms that really can surprise them, even if they have a background in meteorology. Was there anything about that hurricane, just the structure of it, the way it ramped up, anything like that, that just really, you might have thought, not even thought that was possible?
Right. Well, I mean, everybody watched this forecast, right? But at that moment, I was like, how did I not see this coming? I was pretty upset with myself, the morning after, I was just like, how did I not see this coming? Like, I was just so upset with myself, but I know this was like a very unique hurricane, never experienced anything like that. But I just want to know the science behind it and why we weren't able to, have the proper models to forecast it. The best meteorologists in the world couldn't forecast it. So I just want to know the science behind it.
So I'm sure your friends were the same way. They're like, why didn't you know this, right? Your friends were with you going, you're the meteorologist. You should have seen this.
Yeah, I mean, it was a learning experience, and we know that climate, our weather is changing every day. It's getting hotter, and especially now with La Nina. I mean, we don't really know what to expect, but at least we know something like this can happen, and we'll prepare for it better next time.
Do you speak Spanish? Are you fluent in Spanish?
Yes.
Okay, that would have made a difference, I would think, when you were down there. I would think being in a place like that and not speaking the language, even though those resorts, as many people speak English as Spanish probably, but I'm sure that had to help.
Yeah, I definitely did. I got to interview some people, and it was just beautiful to connect with them, and they told me their life stories and just to connect with everyone out there. It was a good experience.
That's terrific. That's terrific. I can't imagine what you went through. We're just amazing what that experience must have been like. Do you want to chase hurricanes now or just track them from a weather?
Oh, man. I don't know. You never know what to expect, but I would love to at least one more time.
But be on the side where you know what's happening, where it's going, and all the data at your fingertips. How I know how you're so good. You had some great questions. Go ahead.
Roxy, just thank you so much for coming on the show today. I think it's unimaginable what you went through. And I just, what I appreciate about your experience, you're really humanizing this, we hear about these events and we see the statistics, what the wind speeds were, or what the number of homes flooded or the number of people injured, things like that. But to actually hear your personal stories of going through it and the people that you interacted with, I think it really helped to humanize this event and just help us get a feel for the impact on the human lives there.
Thank you for bringing a spotlight to this and for, involving me. I love that I get to speak on this, and I love to learn from professionals in the weather world like you guys. And I'm really grateful to be here speaking with you guys.
We're glad to have you, Roxy. Thank you so much. Great stuff today. Just the video is amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for sharing your story. It's quite remarkable to find yourself in that situation and be able to come back and document it the way you have, and to share your story of what you went through. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Roxy.
Thank you for having me.
Hal, great job. Are you still in the flood over there, Hal?
I actually found when we were having some of our better discussion today, I actually had two police, one before me and one behind me, and another car pushing a big wake. So I was trying to navigate that. I ended up backing out of this road, but it's kind of funny where I'm at. About 60% of the ground is dry, but about 40% is inundated pretty deep with salt water. So I was able to get to a dry spot. But again, we're expecting the storm surge to stick with us here along the upper Texas coast throughout the day today.
The one thing I noticed, Hal, is you're not on your bicycle. I didn't know you owned a car. I'm glad to see you own a car.
Yeah, and it's hard to storm chase on bicycles. I learned that the hard way. So if there's a storm event, I'm definitely in a vehicle.
Well, good job, Hal. We appreciate it today. Thanks for your insight and for your knowledge and for showing us what you're seeing where you are. We appreciate that as well. I want to thank all our viewers who've been with us today. We appreciate you checking out NTWC Plus here from the National Tropical Weather Conference. Our sponsors, once again, to make it possible, USAA, the South Padre Island Convention and Visitors Bureau, Weather Boy, Weather Call, the Weather Company, and of course, Black Magic Design. We appreciate you all being part of us. Alex, good job back in the studio. We appreciate that. We'll see you next week. We'll have another program for you next week. In the meantime, thanks, Roxy. Thanks, Al. We'll see you next week.